fifth video on the construction of the drawer for the dartboard cabinet. Now, just showing you the current view is what we would call an exploded drawing, and it's annotated as well. It's got some information added in to help give some additional detail. And I'm going to focus in on the drawer at this point, just to show you how the drawer is going to work. The drawer is made up of a front and back and two sides, okay, fairly standard construction. And we've got some finger or box joins here. And that's made out of the nice yellow colored pine you can see. At the bottom, you'll see there's another piece of timber there that's housed into the base in the same way that we did the back of the cabinet. And then it's got this decorative drawer front, okay, decorative drawer front. When we're working in cabinet making, it's very common to have a drawer made out of a standard timber at the back, usually or quite often a cheaper species of timber, and then you use a more expensive or decorative piece as a false front. It makes the drawer look more expensive than it is, and also helps to hide some of the defects in case your joinery isn't up to scratch as well. So that's the other added benefit of having it, on top of the aesthetic benefit of that nice finished looking front. Okay, so that's what we're working towards. The drawer here that we're working on is made up of six pieces, and I'll show you how to get all those decorative bits in as we go through as well. So let's head on back to our model, and this is where we left off. And you can see my component window on the side. I've got my color window as well. And you should have similar components if you've been following along this video series. At this point, we're going to once again go to our front view. Command 3 gives us our front view so that we can work out exactly the size that our drawer needs to be. And our drawer is going to be going from this point here to this point here. Okay, so that's our total height. So we can make a measurement from here to here, and that's about 120 millimeters is what it's saying. If we were to measure it out accurately, I think we'd find that it is 119.5 because of that decimal place. Sometimes when you measure it doesn't go specific. So the height of our drawer is 119.5 millimeters. That is the height of the outside of the drawer. Okay? And then the width of the outside of the drawer is from here to here, which is 598. Okay, so those two dimensions, 598 and 119.5, this is for the false front. Okay, let's make the false front first since we've got those measurements handy. And I'll show you how to do that. Nice and simple. To start with, we're going to draw a rectangle. So I'm going to go back into front view. I'm going to draw a rectangle just off to the side here. Doesn't really matter too much in the sizes required. So it's 598 by 119.5. Okay. Once I've got that, go into my isometric view. That's going to be made out of 19 millimeter thick timber. Okay. And I mean, it doesn't really matter what order you do this, but if I was to select all of this, go into my color panel and give it a nice dark color, that looks nice. All right, I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to rotate around, okay, and I'm going to start looking down the end grain of the timber here, because this is where we start doing our decorative edge. Now, there are lots of different decorative edges you can do. There's no specific rule about how we do it, so don't stress too much. But I'm going to go from here to here to here. Okay, and that's drawn me a nice little arc. Okay, you can do it in any way you want. Okay, so I've got my arc there. And the tool that we use to get rid of the timber for our fancy looking profile, tool, follow me. So tools menu, follow me. What we do here is we select that part of the shape that we've created from our curve. and we click and drag along that line, and then we come down the side. Now I'm not holding my mouse button down at the moment. I've clicked and released. I'm just dragging along, doing this very slowly and following all the way up to the corner. Okay. And you see I get kind of this ugly looking finish here. Okay. And with the exception of this little bit here, it's actually turned out quite well. So let me try that again. This tool does have a habit of not working as expected, so don't be surprised if you get similar results. There are a couple of different ways you can do it. Okay, you can see there it's made another mistake. So just have a couple of goes at it. Keep using Command Z as long as you're having issues. But one of the important things that I find is having a really steady mouse movement and trying not to have too many issues with deviating from that line. And once you think you've got it, you click, and you'll see there I've now got this really nice looking neat edge. Okay, and that's a beautiful decorative front for my draw. Now I can also play around with some offset tools. Okay, there's lots of different ways you can go about doing these, and then put some lighter colored timber just on that inside line there. And again, it just makes it look that little bit nicer. Now, this is just decorative purposes in SketchUp. What you actually do in the workshop would be to use a router bit to cut that profile around the outside. And if you wanted to get that lighter color timber on the inside, you would need to do an inlay or be very, very careful with your staining processes. I don't think it would be possible to stain it like that, but an inlay would be the way that I would do it. So I've now got my draw front. That's what we call a false front. Highlight the lot, right click, make component, and I'm going to call this false front. Or I actually might call it draw false front, just because my component list is starting to get a little bit long, so I need to be able to differentiate all the parts. So let's delete that out now. Back to our front view. Now our draw then, the actual draw components need to fit inside of this rectangle. Okay, so just where that color is. The draw fits on the inside, the draw front covers the outside. Okay, so we need to get the dimensions of that area. So dimensions internally are 560 and 90 millimeters high. So again, just into isometric view, I'm just going to get rid of this assembled carcass. It's going to be in the way when I'm doing this part of the drawing. Back to my front view and draw myself the front of my draw. Now the front of my draw, remember, is 560 millimeters by 90, and there's my rectangle. Now the draw is going to be made out of finger joints. So from the ends, I'm going to use the rule tool to give me a construction line that's 19 millimeters from the edge. So I just typed in 19, enter, so I get these evenly spaced ones. And then I'm going to click down, again 19, and continually go down by 19 until I run out of timber. Okay, and see that one's gone over the edge. What that's going to mean, if I use 19 millimeters, I'm going to have 4 evenly spaced finger joints, and then my bottom ones will not be matching. Okay, and I'm okay with that for this particular project. So here's my pencil tool. Okay, start drawing some cutouts. I'm going to put a color on this just so you can see how it's working. Okay, so you can see I've made some cutouts there. And it's important that we actually remove these outside lines to indicate exactly how the finger joints are going to work. So there's our front of the draw. And if we go into isometric view, push-pull mode, 19 millimeters, there it is. We can get rid of our construction lines. Okay, select all. Let's turn that into pine color timber. Right click, make component, and I'm going to call this draw front and back. Now remember, not the false front, just the actual front and back. So that's the front of our draw. And if I bring my carcass back in, the next dimension then, if that goes in the front, is how far back does the draw go? That's going to give us our sides. So our draw sides are going to go from here going to be this height and come all the way back. So there'll be 90 by 90 are the dimensions that we work with. And if I go into isometric view, you'll see how that works now. Use my push-pull tool to push-pull by 19. Now you see I've got this overlapping happening again. That's intentional. The reason I've done the overlapping is because we are going to be using the subtract tool again. Okay, so I'm going to call this make component. I'm going to call this draw sides. And what I can do now is I can get my draw front and back and bring another one of those in. And I can use my tool, solid tools, trim, and trim from this to that. And the tools, trim this to that. Oh, sorry, made that around the wrong way. I need to have the front selected. Tools, let's trim this to that. And what actually has happened now, if I move this out of the way, is I now have this excellent cutout, which is exactly what I was looking for. Now, that means my draw sides don't necessarily match anymore, okay? But it's going to be okay because I can delete that, edit this component, and call that draw sides now. Now that I've got my two draw sides, or sorry, my one draw side, I can move it all together on this end. And I can actually do the same at the far end here. Click to click. I've now got my draw all ready to go. It's just missing its base. Now, as we've always done, the bases are the same size as the internal, okay, which is 552 by 52. So let's draw a rectangle, 552 by 52. Ooh. And then we use our offset tool to offset it out by 5 millimeters. 5 millimeters. The reason I use that dimension is because that matches the size of the router bit that I'll be using. This one will be made approximately 3 millimeters thick this time around. We're using a different type of plywood for this component. Okay. And again, make component, base, draw, base. Rotate around. You should be getting a little bit more familiar with these processes now. Lots of repetitive actions happening. Okay, so if I'm going a little bit faster now, it's because I'm expecting you to be a little bit more experienced. Okay, tools, solid tools, trim this from that. All right, we're back. Thanks for that. So you'll see I've now corrected my draw base just by adjusting the measurements to fit correctly and using the subtraction or the trim tool again. Now that I've got that sorted, I can get my false front and bring my false front into my model. And I can then actually go from the middle. So if I hover over here, I can find the middle, and then I can draw that along the front here, and that should be able to snap to the middle. Now, if you find you're having issues getting the middle, as we've done in the past, just use your pencil tool to navigate the two midpoints. Just gives it an easier point to snap to, and you can delete out those dark lines you no longer need. And you will recall as well, so if I rotate this around, there's meant to be a half overlap at the top. So again, I'm going to move this up by 9.5 millimeters. So what that gives me is a half overlap at the top and a full 19 millimeter overlap at the bottom. That's now my assembled draw, ready to go. So I can select all, right click, make component, assembled draw. And at this point, we're ready to assemble our entire project. So I can get my assembled carcass. I can get my doors. Okay, and I'm ready to start piecing this project together. So let's use my move tool from here to here. And remember, I'll full overlay that, so I'll bring that way, and a half overlay this one, so it goes up by 9.5. Then I can connect point to point. And lastly, I can then get my draw and if I rotate this around now, I then have my assembled project. Now, the last little bits that I've got left for the drawing are the decorative components. So feel free to modify those when you get into the next video to whatever shapes and sizes suit you best. But one other little trick that quite often is great to have is your ability to open your project. So using the move tool and following along the green axes, you can pull your draw out just slightly. And then if you select your door, use the rotate tool, grab the inside corner with the blue protractor, and then you can open that up, and we'll do the same over here. So we'll make sure we get the blue protractor, grab that side there and open that up. And now what I've got is my open carcass, Command S. And at this point, you're probably ready to move it into SketchUp, or you can watch the next video and put the decorative components on. Thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.